Welcome to the Gals Guide podcast. Join us on an adventure to get to know famous and infamous women from around the world. Each of our presenters has a pick. Is she ancient history? Is she breaking news? Is she safe for work? Well, that's up to each presenter. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back to the Gals Guide podcast. It is a new month and a new theme. It's innovation within our Rebel Gal era. So innovation fuels rebellion by introducing new ideas and methods and technologies that challenge, that's the word, outdated systems and open pathways for change. So through creative problem solving, rebels can disrupt the norms and push society towards transformation. So let me introduce you to my innovators who are with me this month. First up, she is president of Gals Guide and our head librarian, Bonnie Just Fillenworth, everybody. Yay, Bonnie! So, Bonnie, what is just one of your rebel plans this month?
Get caught up on my stuff.
Okay, I like it. Your stuff.
Yeah, I had to help Mom move out of her house in like 4 days.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And then with like being sick. And now I'm getting over being sick a second time in the last like couple months.
'Tis the season, that sort of thing.
Apparently.
Yeah,
I don't
why
know.
not?
So I'm trying to get caught up on my shit, which includes planting my plants. I still have what plants that have survived.
Right?
Which are not many.
Oh no, is there a great tragedy?
Yeah, I think I have 3 tomatoes out of like I think I started like 60. So I'm gonna have to go buy tomatoes tomorrow. I don't know, but my peppers.
Yeah.
I had like a whole tray of peppers. And like half of them died.
Oh.
But the ones that have lived are looking really good.
Oh, okay. So the good ones survived. Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. I'll knock on bamboo.
But like pretty much everything else I started in like January. This is
no. Dead. Just kind of like a bad growing season.
Can I say something horrible?
Sure.
This actually makes me feel a little better because I killed all mine too.
'Tis the season? Yep. Oh, maybe it's just a bad
So it's going to be a lot of...
it feels all the hate in the world.
Yeah, planting whatever has survived.
We can't thrive in this environment.
And even the plants are rejecting it, going no.
Same.
Yeah, so it'll be planting whatever has survived.
Right.
And then probably just starting directly in the ground, stuff like cucumbers and stuff.
There you go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it'll be
It's going to work out,
a weird
Bonnie.
summer. Yes.
You will be reaping your garden
Harvest?
Yes. Produce.
I'm pretending like I know what these words are too.
You'll be reaping, which seems pretty rebellious to
Yes, exactly.
Just like you, they too will persist, Bonnie. You hang in there.
I believe in you. You're a good plant parenthood.
Plant parenthood.
Plant parent? I don't know.
Yes, you're a good plant parent. Yep, there you go. So, I like it. Sweet! Well, next up is our fab book club director. My face works today. And vice president of Gals Guide, it's Katie Young, everybody!
Thank you.
Katie, what is just one of your rebel plans?
Apparently repeating words over and over again, because that's been my style so far this podcast.
Words are hard today. This is going to be a fun month for listeners.
Oh, word.
We're already sorry.
We just started drinking, too.
Exactly.
Right?
And the words are like, no.
One cider.
Yeah, exactly.
Only one.
You know, I saw the greatest thing the other day. I was driving on Logan Street between the Kroger and those apartment buildings, and there were these 2 older ladies carrying posters, getting in a car, and I noticed that their posters said, "Tax the rich."
Yes.
So I think my rebellion plan is I need to find those ladies and join them.
Yes,
exactly. Because how badass is that? Like it was actually Tuesday.
Nice.
Just like a Tuesday at 6, and they're going to go start some good trouble.
Yes.
So I'd be down for that.
I like it.
Call me. Call me, guys.
There you go.
Call me.
Yes.
It might have been the first, I think. I think there were a bunch of protests on the first.
Oh, was it a May Day thing?
I think so.
May Day protests were a thing.
Oh, that was a Thursday.
Yeah.
May Day protest.
Well, I mean, every day can be a protest day. If we've
That's
learned
true.
anything from our rebel era.
Pretty much every
Maybe they just went to Whole Foods.
Tax the rich and Whole Foods.
I think that's a place the message needs to be seen.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, I dig it.
In your face.
Well, next up is Cassie Simcox, who has
basically
we found her on the street. And we decided, come on in. So everybody, welcome Cassie.
Woo!
Third time
time is the charm. Happy to be back again.
You've got like a homing beacon for
I do.
Is there a podcast? Is there a podcast?
I do, yes. Well, Katie was talking about it at school today, and I basically bullied myself into coming.
There you go. We had an empty chair, and I could grab a quick microphone, and it's like, hey.
Yes,
boom.
I'm so honored to be back yet again. I am always so happy whenever I can join. So,
well, what would be just one of your many Rebel plans for this month?
I currently have an idea for a new writing piece that is just bouncing around in my brain, and I'm working hard to get it out and onto paper. So it is a piece that I've put a lot of thought into. It is cycling back to when I worked at a Christian summer camp the year 2010.
Oh, that has to be a fun story.
It is a very fun story, and the title is something along the lines of A Summer of Fun, Worship, and Hazing. So stay tuned for that.
Ooh, I like
wow.
it.
Sounds like a dark expose.
It is. Just wait, because spoiler alert, a lot of, looking back, some really not okay things.
Yeah, really surprisingly. 2010 in a Christian camp? No.
Yes, no. Just wait until the tea on the executive director gets spilled.
Ooh. Exciting. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that one, everybody. So, coming soon to 2026 autobiography near you. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Yes, some kind of reading material, whether it's maybe a Gal's Guide anthology.
Oh, I would love to.
Glorious piece. Yes, exactly.
Yes, I would love to submit a second piece into the anthology. Yes. So, maybe I could somehow work it into this year's theme. I would absolutely love that.
Exactly. And also, why not both? Because I always encourage anybody who sends something to the anthology, dude, publish, get it out there.
I want to continue publishing. It was such an honor to be published in 2024.
Do it again.
It just means so much. Yes, I would love that. So I will I will work hard to make that happen.
There you go. I just want you to write it. If it's, any
I absolutely want to write it too. And what else is so fun about that is I've a good friend of mine who was there at the camp too. We're talking about it, so we're gonna, I think, maybe try and at one point
brainstorm, bounce off each other,
and do a joint writing part together. So that could be very fun. So I think it could be a little scandalous.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Sweet. Well, as for me, I am Riwo. I'm the executive director of Gal's Guide Library. My Rebel plans is my family's moving to Minnesota, is the glorious news. I can't remember if we've talked about it on the podcast yet. I have no idea. I'm excited, but I'm stressed because it's just like, it's a whole bunch all at once, and I haven't done this in like 16 years. So
let alone a different state.
Yeah,
that's like next level.
That is.
The last time we moved, we were in Indiana, but the time before that was Savannah, Georgia. So it's been like 20 years since we've done a state move. But we did a California to Georgia before, which was, a nightmare within itself. But we did that one and survived it. We were young and dumb and a little bit bulletproof at that point, so it helps.
Yeah, not as gun shy.
Right, exactly. So I'm very excited about the idea of new adventures, but at the same time, it's very sad. So it's a very bittersweet thing. But we're continuing the damn podcast because people have actually asked for that to continue.
Sign me up.
So podcast fun. The internet is a thing, and we can make it work, and it'll be amazing.
Count me in.
This is the time that I usually turn to Bonnie and I say, hey, do you want to start us off? Who do you have? But my gal has a birthday today. Woo! I know. So I'm going to start us off with our really fun innovator that has a rebellious aspect.
Did you do the math to figure out what birthday it is for her?
159.
Nice.
Whoa.
Yes, I did do the math because I was like, I can do this.
Doesn't look a day over 59.
Right. She's an older lady.
Nice.
But I've done a couple of presentations about this gal, and in that presentation is usually the mothers of invention. So Bonnie and I, we were at her training academy. She was one of my mother of invention that we did at Starbase Indy. I've even done, talked about her in the library with a couple of Girl Scout troops and innovations, or inventions anyway. And I know that innovation and invention are separate things. However, her game that she invented was very innovative as well, especially when you kind of like put the Rebel theme on it and all that kind of good stuff. So, so I used the starting point in my presentation and a little bit, there was far more to her life. So I was like, dude, I could have her as a podcast pick so I can get to know. So I'm going to talk about Lizzie Magie. She invented the game Monopoly.
Oh,
Yes.
the landlord game.
The landlord's game. Yes.
Do not pass go.
So sometimes she's Elizabeth Magie, but she went by Lizzie. And so it's one of the two. I'm going to call her Lizzie because I like nicknames. What can I say? So I chose her because she was actually trying to prove with the game how bad monopolies are. That was the whole idea of this game. And she was so rebellious in that aspect of anti-monopolies. She had in the game that you could play it as an anti-monopoly, how she designed it, but that you could also play it as the landlord and create monopolies to see how bad they were. Well, it got so popular playing it the corruptible way that is more of the way that we know it. It also makes sense for her rebelliousness of why she created the game the way that she did, and I wanted to dig into it. So, Elizabeth Magie, or Lizzie, was born May 9th, 1866, 159 years ago at the time of this recording, in Illinois.
Neighboring state.
Right? Midwestern gal, right? Her father was a newspaper publisher who, at one point, followed the tour schedule of a Mr. Abraham Lincoln as he did his Lincoln-Douglas debates throughout
rock star.
Illinois, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So her father was a supporter of Georgeism, and so was Lizzie. And I'm going to explain what Georgeism is because it really totally relates to the game Monopoly. Like, do not pass go. Oh, sorry. Okay. Damn it. I was not going to do Monopoly puns, and then I did.
I already blew it right when you started. Right? Yeah, it's just so easy to do.
It is. It's just, and I will encourage puns.
I mean, you're a shoe-in.
Yes. Oh, shit. Look at that. I like it. So the fact is, the game that she invented, the landlord's game, was to show how awesome Georgeism was. It was actually kind of like, not, I wouldn't say a recruiting tool, but it was like, if you like this game, you'll like Georgeism, join our club, join our society, join our network. So I did a quick little dive into Georgeism because it actually really does relate to Lizzie, and it rebellion, like 100%. So Georgeism came from the writings of Henry George, and his very influential book, which I'm sure you've all read, is the 1879 book, Progress and Poverty. Oh, the page turner of Progress and Poverty. Yeah,
have
exactly.
A copy bedside.
Don't you? I do.
Yes.
It's a go-to for sure. So he wrote that people should own the value of what they produce themselves. He thought that the money from the land and natural resources which no individual produced should belong equally to all members of society.
Communist.
Yes, exactly. So Georgeism is a single tax theory. So sometimes they'll call it single tax, and it does come up in socialism quite a bit as well. So the single tax didn't include tax on buildings or improvements, but the idea that everybody would profit from the land, that there wouldn't be a landlord in the sense of the land itself. So the idea is the belief that the land and the natural resources are a common inheritance of humanity.
That's really beautiful.
And that unearned income, meaning like rent paying on that from the land, should benefit everybody.
So he died miserable, didn't he?
He did. He also was a supporter of women's rights. And so therefore...
Poor man.
Well, we can't have that now, can we?
His daughter was Anne George de Millier. And also a friend and supporter of Henry George was Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who wrote The Yellow Wallpaper. Yes! So Anna also wrote a book about her father and supported the single tax and did tours around talking about the single tax. But George's philosophy was very much an economic justice and independence that was interconnected to gender equality as well as to suffrage and all of that kind of good stuff.
Amen.
Just deemed to fail from the start. Apparently, but sure. Lizzie moved from Illinois to the D.C. area, where she spent most of her life kind of in that Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C. spot. She was great at a typewriter for various reasons. She had a job at a typist at the dead letter office. You know those letters that are like addressed to Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy, the letters that aren't going to go anywhere?
What?
She was a typist there to do the reports of what letters came in because they actually kept documents of what they were. And sometimes they'd write back. Yeah. Sometimes, like, the letters
That's
to
pretty
Santa,
cute.
they actually would, like, write back.
Sorry, Timmy, I can't bring back your dead dog.
Exactly. A little busy right now. Stand by.
It's my busy season.
She was also a secretary and a newspaper reporter, hence the typewriter.
Okay.
She wrote poetry and short stories. And at age 26, she filed a patent for typewriters to load paper better. So
Nice.
the two rollers that were part of it, she really liked typewriters in a wide variety of ways. She also did some comedic acting, not a whole bunch of it, but enough to put on a resume at some point. She was very passionate about her politics. She also supported herself financially and did not marry until she was 44.
Nice.
Good
Right?
for her.
Exactly. So to me, that means by choice.
That's right.
But when she was 37, she filed for another patent, and this one is for the landlord's game. It was a square board with street names on it, 4 railroads, and a go-to-jail square. So does any of that sound familiar? A little bit? Yeah.
I think I've seen it before.
Yeah. I think I've cried over it a couple of times, too.
I've thrown things.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone swiped.
Yeah,
That's what
I
she
think that
does.
is the most table flipped game.
Yeah, this is very true. So her game existed as early as 1902, like as she was developing it, as she was testing it with friends. She filed for the patent in 1904. But there was 2 ways to play. There was the anti-monopolist, where everyone's wealth was shared. And then there was the monopolist, where you crush everyone and take all of the things that they have until they cry in shame.
Sounds really familiar. Right
Doesn't it now? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, no.
With an accepted patent, Lizzie moved to Chicago. She decided to kind of self-publish the game under a company she created called Economic Gain Company. And she founded that with some fellow Georgists as well. It was the idea that they were kind of going to be selling it to like-minded people. But Parker Brothers, who eventually would sell the landlord's game as Monopoly, and I will get there, they also published 2 other Lizzie Magie games as well. There was a card game called The Mock Trial. And then there was also Bargain Day, where shoppers competed at a department store. Sure.
Black Friday.
Sure. And then there was another one called Kingsman, which was a strategy game. So so she did have 3 games produced by Parker Brothers before they ripped off her other one. So in 1921...
Fast forward.
Right, exactly. So in 1921, she repatents Landlord's Game. The first patent had expired. And she started hearing about college students who were using the game and making their own version of the game because professors were teaching economy using the Landlord's Game. So it was a teaching tool. And then because it was adaptable with like the idea of the street names and things like that, people just started making their own game. So a lot of college students and just general people who thought it was fun, who learned it from college students, made their own version. So she refiled and she got another company to release it called Ad Game Company. They had authorized copies of it. But students attending Harvard and Columbia and the University of Pennsylvania were playing the game, and the professors were teaching a version of it. So because everybody's playing some version of her game, Charles Darrow, we don't like him, boo hiss, was one of the people who started making his own version of Lizzie's Landlord game. But Charles claimed ownership and then went to Parker Brothers and said, look what I made in my basement.
What a fraud.
Exactly. Now, Parker Brothers was like near bankruptcy at the time. This was after the Great Depression. They were really struggling. So the idea of a game where people are trying to get money and bankrupting other people was, they're like, we could maybe use this to get us out of our slump. And that's 1935 that Parker Brothers decides to take it on. Now, Charles Darrow, he said he invented it in his basement, but really he played a version of it in Atlantic City. And that's also why Atlantic City and Boardwalk and all of those were like his additions to the street names. So Charles did try to sell it to Milton Bradley, but they rejected it. They said no. Parker Brothers, not only did they help him distribute this game that earned Charles millions of actual dollars, not Monopoly money, but like actual dollars, Parker Brothers also put on the box that Charles was the sole inventor of the game. His name appeared on the box until like the 1970s, by the way.
Boo hiss.
Right, we don't like him. So within a year of releasing Monopoly, which is now the Parker Brothers game, supposedly created by a Charles, so Lizzie was interviewed in the paper about this new game that was very similar to a game that other people knew that she had invented. So she spoke out in the paper of how similar the games were. She also talked about how she spent more money making and selling her game than she ever got in sales.
Wow.
So she was like underwater.
So
Meanwhile, he's making millions at it, right?
Terrible.
Adding that on the box, she's not getting any credit for it. Let's just say she was a bit miffed.
I'd be salty.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So she went to Parker Brothers. She is still a woman in the 1930s, though, so unfortunately. Parker Brothers made a deal. They would publish 2 of her games. That is that Mock Trial and the Bargain Hunt. Or no, I think it's Bargain Hunt and the King. 2 of her games. And they would give her $500. That is about $12,000 in today's money.
That's about a half of the millions that he's getting. That's pretty close.
Add some more millions onto that. I mean, we're talking. But even though they gave her 2 games and $500, they continued to give Charles the credit. That was part of the deal. That they invested so much in this man of inventing Monopoly that had to stay, and she had to stay quiet about it. So she would die in 1948 at the age of 81. And it wasn't too long after that the world kind of forgot about her. So there was that little brouhaha when the game kind of came out, but her ties to the famous game were completely obscured on purpose so that Parker Brothers could continue to sell in the way that they wanted to sell. Until the 1970s.
Oh, fast forward.
Fast forward to the 70s. Lizzie is unfortunately no longer with us. However, an economics professor at San Francisco State University created his own game called the Anti-Monopoly game. And something just tried to kill Bonnie. Yes, exactly.
She's happy.
Where is it? I don't know what fell.
Fell near the hook. Maybe it was a book that's over by the aprons.
I legit just jumped so high in my seat.
Oh, the stack fell. Oh. We've got a book haunting, ladies and gentlemen. Is Bonnie having a heart attack?
No, I'm good.
Whatever spirits here is also very upset.
Right. Also upset with the Monopoly game. Hells no. All right. So, the economic professor's name is Ralph Anspaugh. And he has like a really unique history as well that is worth mentioning. So he was born in Germany in 1926. He escaped to the U.S. He then served in the U.S. military. He also volunteered to go undercover in the 1948 Arab-Israel War to help the skirmish. He's a very interesting man. Yeah. But his big claim to fame is that he made an anti-monopoly and got sued by Parker Brothers. And in the lawsuit that follows, brings us back to Lizzie. Do you see where I'm going?
They want to acknowledge her work.
Own it, right? So when Parker Brothers sued him, Ralph decided to do his research and pointed out that Charles did not have the credit for inventing Monopoly's invention. So who Parker Brothers purchased it from didn't actually own it. He learned it from friends.
Oh my God.
And he admitted it in print. Charles admitted it in print that he learned it from friends. So Lizzie did have the legal proof of the creation. But Parker Brothers, in their little deal, didn't actually give her credit for inventing it. So in this wonderful lawsuit that Ralph brought forth, said, do you even have ownership of the game Monopoly?
Excellent question.
Does she even go here?
Right? Exactly. So in 1979, Ralph and Parker Brothers and their parent company, General Mills, this is how big of a lawsuit it is. General Mills bought Parker Brothers at one point. They reached a settlement. So settlement means we don't really know what it was, but let's put it this way. Ralph could keep making his game. So if they settled and he could keep making his game, and the question was, do you even own this? Then in 1983, the U.S. Supreme Court saw Ralph also win the opoly prefix or suffix. So you know how they have like Indie-opoly? They have your university name, Opoly.
I was about to say, is this when all of the Opolis took off?
Yeah, he got the rights to every single one of those.
Whoa.
So that suffix, he owns the rights to that is separate from Parker Brothers. That actually goes to Ralph. In 1999, he published a book called The $1 Billion Monopoly Swindle, where he talks about his entire legal fight over this game and how much credit Lizzie should have got for the origination of it.
Bravo.
Right? It takes till 1999 to actually get. So his research really brought back to light how important Lizzie was and how she was the inventor. And Parker Brothers really just thought that they could outsmart two very rebellious people. But it turns out they lost the game. See, there it is.
Oh,
See? I know. I brought it all.
Put him in jail.
I brought it all back to it.
Bankrupt.
Yes, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Yes. I like it. But then, I will offer this up. Maybe we, the players, also lost the game. Because the early players of the 1902 game, it was more popular way to become a billionaire and millionaire and to buy up everything and financially like choke out your friends and family. Maybe we lost the point that Lizzie was trying to put together that we could all be prosperous together. Because there was actually a board about prosperity, about us all sharing the wealth on the board, and we lost the point. So the game has been around in like one version or another for like 123 years at this point. And I think we've been losing the point like more than ever on the Monopoly board. That driven to consume, that greediness, spending Monopoly money like it had real value sort of thing. When Lizzie wanted us to look at the version of the game and said, could we maybe do this in a better way? Yeah, exactly. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts on Monopoly? Because I do have a little final bit, but it gets real serious for a second.
Did they ever make the other version of her Monopoly?
They did. So they re-released the Landlord's game a couple of times with her photo on it.
Nice. Great.
And it was a little different than her original patent. So there was that one. She had redesigned it at one point. Instead of a square, it was kind of more of a circular spiral pattern. So there's a couple of versions that have been re-released that are that were out there at one point. How easy they are to find. But yes, I've seen photos of them. And I'll put them in the show notes.
Oh, there you go.
If I can find them again. But yes.
Be interesting to see her other games too.
Yeah, exactly.
Trey got for me for my birthday. Well, I don't know. Maybe purchased the PDF file.
I was gonna say he made a game for you.
He made one.
Recreated an old game.
It's is it suffragette? I think it's British, so I think it's suffragette.
Right. Yes.
Game, and it's similar to Pit, where you're trying to get all of the same cards in your hand, and you're like frantically trying to like trade them and yelling things.
Right. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
I love an old school game.
He made it look so good too. You can tell he put tons of work into it.
He printed it on like cardstock,
sweet.
and at one point during the summer or like right before Christmas, he printed like 2 things off on cardstock accidentally. And he's like, "Well, I'll buy you new cardstock." And I'm like, "That's stupid."
Right? Yeah.
What do you? He meant because he used it all.
Because he used so much of my cardstock. You had none left.
Because he had to print like, it was like 2 cards per page, I think.
Oh, I see.
And then he printed front and back, and then he was gluing them together too.
To give them that thickness.
So he used like
it looks like a game you bought.
That is
Well, he paid for like the box. I think he gave the file to some kind of company that would make the box.
There you go. Yeah.
That's like one of the most
It's
thoughtful
so
things
sweet.
I've ever heard.
A game that you can't find anywhere except for online. Now it's a physical.
Well, now we're going to have to make
so sweet.
her other game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Make the Landlord's games and the Kinsman games. And I mean, yes, the shopping bargain hunt one. Yeah. We'll play it on Black Friday.
That sounds like it would be like Pit.
Yes, it very much could be. Exactly. Any other questions, Monopoly thoughts? Glorious Lizzie Magie things. All right. So one last thing about Monopoly, and I'm honestly using this showcase because it's one of my favorite stories that involves Monopoly. And if I don't mention on this episode, I'll probably never mention another episode like ever again. And it's a story that I like come back to time and time again because there's so much wisdom in it. And I think this story has a seed of what Lizzie was the point that she was like trying to get to. But this is written in a more modern context of how we all kind of relate to Monopoly. So this is actually from John Oldenburg. He has a book called It All Goes Back in the Box.
Oh.
Yeah, it gets deep. So he talked about his grandmother, and his grandmother was ruthless at playing Monopoly. So he said, quote, she would accumulate everything she could, and eventually she became a master of the board. And every time I landed, I would have to pay her money, and eventually every time she would take my very last dollar, and his daughter, and I would quit in utter defeat. And then she would always say the same thing to me. She'd look me in the eye and she'd say, one day you'll learn to play the game. And I hated it when she said that to me. But one summer, I played Monopoly with a neighbor kid, a friend of mine, and almost every day, all day long, we played Monopoly for hours. And that summer, I learned to play the game. I came to understand the only way to win was a total commitment to acquisition. I came to understand that money and possessions, that's the way you keep score. And by the end of that summer, I was more ruthless than my grandmother. I was ready to bend the rules if I had to win that game. And so I sat down with her to play that fall. I destroyed her financially and psychologically.
Oh my God.
I watched her give her last dollar and quit in utter defeat. And it was the greatest moment of my life. And then she had one more thing to teach me. She said, now it all goes back in the box. All those houses and hotels, all those railroads and utility companies, all that property and all that wonderful money, it all goes back in the box. But I didn't want it to go back in the box. I wanted to leave the board out, bronze it maybe, and have a memorial of my ability to play the game. No, she said, none of it was really yours. You got all heated up about it for a while, but it was around a long time before you sat down at the board. And it'll be here after you're gone. Players come and go, but it all goes back in the box. It all goes back in the box. Those houses, those cars, those titles, those clothes, those filled barns, those bulging portfolios, even your body. It all goes back
Grandma.
in the box. Right? Exactly. So if I didn't share that story,
that's a great.
I had to share that story. So that's also what I kind of think of Monopoly as well, too. I'm like, just pretend. Just a game.
Yeah.
So
it's a good lesson. I would never be able to get that deep.
See? Yeah. There you go. The Monopoly wisdom of it all. Should I wrap us up on that?
Yes.
That heavy lift. Sorry about that.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So that wraps it up for us this week. Join us next week as another innovation gal is picked to share on the Gals Guide podcast. Thanks for listening.
Want to learn about more women of history? Gals Guide opened a unique women's history lending library. Come visit and explore our collection. Learn more at galsguide.org. Thanks for listening.